Please, please keep eating. Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining us. A couple of quick notes. First of all, how great is it that we can all get together in person? It's been a couple of years, huh? And what about the snow? Where was it during the ski season? My name is Bill Redeker. Along with my business partner, Siobhan Smith, we are longtime supporters of the Peace House and its mission. I'm honored to MC this event as it's the major fundraiser of the year. A little later, we're going to have something called a Give for Good paddle raise, which we'll explain. It's going to be your chance to contribute directly to the Peace House and further its mission. The mission. Most of you know and appreciate the mission: to break the cycle of violence, provide shelter, safety, and support for survivors of domestic, physical, and emotional violence. Holistic. The Peace House believes and practices a holistic approach to heal the trauma by supporting moms, dads, kids, and yes, their pets. Pets are important. To give you an idea of how it works, take a look at this video presentation by former news anchor Kim Fisher, herself a victim and survivor of sexual abuse as a child and as an adult.
Hi, I'm Kim Fisher. I'm an investigative journalist and supporter of the Peace House mission. I have done too many reports on tragedies in the state of Utah, and I know domestic violence can happen to anyone, regardless of age, gender, or socioeconomic status. I know domestic violence is happening right here in our community. We're going to share a video with you, and it features a 911 call made by a child. And we want to warn you that what you're about to hear is disturbing.
Okay, we're going to be there. What's going on?
They're having a fight because this has been going on forever and ever.
How's he hurting her?
He made some red marks on Mom.
What did he make the red marks on? What's the matter?
No one should ever have to go through that experience. The Peace House is not only serving those who have experienced domestic violence, they are working to break the cycle so the statistics change.
Hi, my name is Charles, and I'd like to talk to you about my last relationship. We moved pretty quickly for, most of the relationships that I had. I mean, we moved in together after a month, and she just convinced me that her outbursts were based on things that I was doing. It was hard. It was always my fault. She started to get a little bit more violent with her outbursts. She would punch me in my arm, and then a couple of times she just really flew into a rage. I mean, she even tried to choke me, and she kept telling me that if I stay, she said it was over and that it would never happen again. And 2 days later, she'd do the same thing again, and I was afraid that nobody would believe me, I mean, it did come down that my parents finally asked me about her, and they kind of encouraged me to get my confidence to say no more. Nobody deserves to be abused. And, I started going through therapy, and I started to reach out to organizations that would help in this situation. I wasn't the only one that had ever experienced, an abuse in this way, that it can happen to men. And that really gave me confidence, is going to a place like the Peace House. They had people to help and say that you're not alone. I think that that's probably what helped me the most.
What Peace House provides is the holistic approach to domestic violence. It's not just the spouse, it's the kids, it's the dog, it's everything that goes with domestic violence. It's finances. How does somebody get out of domestic violence and pay for their own rent? How does somebody take their kids in an environment of dad drops them off at school and mom picks them up. How does that dynamic change? Peace House provides the big picture. It's a whole campus of dedicated professionals that are going to teach and support and mentor.
My name is Florence, and I had a good family, good upbringing. After high school, I met Leo, who eventually became my husband. He was 5 years older than me and very charming, had a good job, handsome. Quite honestly, I was kind of swept off my feet. I guess I chose not to see. He really kind of wanted me all to himself. And he expressed the feeling that if I really loved him, that I really shouldn't want to see my family and my friends. I became increasingly dependent on him, and he seemed to see me differently. He began the name calling and called me things like a loser, or physical abuse started when I was pregnant with my first child. He slapped me and said he should never have married me, that he'd be better off without me. A lot of times I thought about leaving, but I had no way to support my daughter. Where would I go? Then we had a second child, and the baby just would not stop crying. He tried to grab the child from my arms, slammed me into the wall in doing so. And I dialed 911. That's when the police told me about Peace House. I knew I had to get away for the safety of my kids. And it gave me the courage to do that because I had a place to go.
We have a saying in law enforcement to serve and protect. I believe this Peace House has that same mission. They want to serve and protect the citizens of Summit County and those especially been touched by domestic violence. Everybody has the right to live a peaceful, healthy, happy life, violence-free.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Bill, so much for being here today and sharing your time and talents at our spring luncheon. Good afternoon, community. It is so wonderful to see you in person. My name is Kendra Wyckoff, and I'm the Executive Director for Peace House. I'm so grateful to have this opportunity to gather with you, and we also have guests joining us virtually today. So we just appreciate that you are here to hear more about our mission and to also experience and witness and hear about the resilience and strength of survivors. It is because of you, our friends and our community, and your generosity that Peace House has created opportunities for hope, healing, and empowerment. Our resources and support and programs and services happen only because of you. Since we last gathered in person in 2019, Peace House has grown dramatically. We have continued to build upon the strong foundation of our founders, those that heard the first call to action in this community nearly 25 years ago. Peace House successfully completed a nearly $12 million capital campaign, and that was because of this amazing community. We also moved into and transitioned into our new facility in the fall of 2019. This facility has been designed to better support the needs of survivors and their children. Since that time, our programs have truly transformed. We have expanded our core services like emergency shelter, counseling, and case management. And we've developed new programs, including programs that address longer-term housing and sexual assault victim services. Our staff has grown from 21 to 39 in that short time. And that's because we are working to address the ever-evolving needs of survivors in our community. We have also witnessed firsthand, as have you, over the last couple of years, the ripple effect of COVID-19 in our community. This has been incredibly impactful on survivors. We have seen increased rates of abuse, increased rates of violence. We've seen increases in control and coercion and isolation. We've seen the additional stressors of housing and economic uncertainty for survivors. All of this has been contributing to the ongoing and increased requests for help and support that we've been fielding on our helpline and at our community campus. And sadly, these trends show no sign of decreasing. Since 2019, nearly 800 survivors have sought refuge, safety, support, and healing at Peace House. These are women, men, and children in our community. These are our friends, our neighbors, and our coworkers, and our families. As we gather here today, I want to take some time to reflect on this growth and achievement that we've had over the last 3 years. I would really like to thank our current and past Board of Directors and Advisory Council for their years of strategic support and service. We could not be where we are today without you. I also need to thank our amazing Peace House staff and volunteer teams. These are the folks that are here day in and day out, working to support survivors and their children around the clock. The lights never turn out at Peace House. There is always somebody there to provide support to a survivor, whether they're living on our campus or they're calling and reaching out for the first time on our helpline. And thank you to the Spring Luncheon Committee and the volunteers for your ongoing support and for organizing this beautiful event today. This critical event raises the funds to ensure that we can continue to provide life-saving services in our community. I'd also like to thank our sponsors. The Marriott Daughters Foundation is our matching sponsor today. The Pat Moran Family Foundation is our platinum sponsor. To the many table sponsors that you're sitting with today, thank you so much for your incredible support. I think we need to give everybody a round of applause. And lastly, I want to say thank you so much to Promontory and the Double Deer Club for sponsoring us today and allowing us to have this beautiful space to enjoy the spring luncheon, despite the fact that the winter would say otherwise. Or the weather, excuse me, the winter weather. Same thing, thank you. So at Peace House, with the onset of spring this year, which often signifies growth and change, we had the opportunity to announce for the first time in April that we had been working towards new mission and vision statements for our organization. Our vision statement truly builds off of the work that we do each day. And our vision statement is here to cast a destination when our work is maximized. Our new vision statement is we envision communities free of interpersonal violence and abuse. We work to achieve that vision through our mission. Peace House is dedicated to ending interpersonal violence and abuse by empowering survivors to heal and thrive and supporting them with support services, safe housing, and prevention education. These new statements are a product of shared strategic reflection by our staff and our board of directors. After more than 25 years of serving victims of domestic violence, Peace House is not only working to address gaps for domestic violence survivors, but also for sexual assault survivors in our community. Providing survivors with safe, healing, and empowering support will always be the top priority for Peace House. And the emphasis on interpersonal violence and abuse in our mission and vision statement communicates to our community and to survivors that we are here to help both domestic violence victims and sexual assault victims. I want to tell you a little bit about how it came to be and how we were working to fill some gaps in our community for sexual assault survivors. In April 2019, the Wasatch forensic nurses reached out and approached Peace House. They were inquiring about whether or not we could provide support for a hospital advocacy response team. Forensic nurses provide the medical and forensic exam care for sexual assault survivors when they present at the hospital. And it's really important to have an advocate along in that process who can attend that exam and provide emotional support, information, and resources. At the time that Wasatch forensic nurses reached out to us, victims of sexual assault in Summit County were having to be referred to Salt Lake Valley hospitals and clinics to receive that critical care and forensic exam. This created additional barriers for survivors in our community to be able to receive the medical care that they need and the evidence collection process. As an established victim services organization in our community, with many programs designed to serve domestic violence victims who also had experienced sexual assault, we felt like we had the skills to expand that program and the opportunity to develop a hospital response team. Peace House worked with our collaborative partners here in Summit County. That included the Wasatch Forensic Nurses, the Summit County Attorney's Office, the Summit County Sheriff's Office, and the Park City Police Department to build that pilot hospital response program. These partnerships have been really instrumental in supporting this process, and in September 2020, we launched the pilot program for hospital response right here in Summit County. Since that time, Peace House advocates have responded to 33 forensic exams to provide emotional support, resources, and referrals to victims while they navigate the impact of sexual assault on their lives. We are also proud to announce another historic milestone for our organization. On April 12th, all 12 of our transitional housing units were fully occupied by individuals and families that were fleeing domestic violence. The transitional housing program is key and was a significant gap in our community. When survivors were coming to the emergency shelter at Peace House, the average length of stay was 30 to 90 days. And if you can imagine and envision what it might be like trying to put together the pieces of your life and rebuilding after you flee domestic violence in 30 to 90 days, that's not achievable for most. Peace House was committed to having another level of care in the housing programming, a place where families have 6 to 24 months to work on rebuilding their lives and being able to launch from that space and reintegrate into our communities with permanent housing. These apartments provide access to on-site support services for victims of domestic violence as well. They're able to access legal advocacy and counseling and case management while living on our campus in a safe, secure facility. Having an affordable place to call home is crucial for victims of domestic violence. It's crucial because it reduces the risk of them experiencing homelessness, and it reduces the risk of them experiencing violence again. This year, we had 27 people, including 12 children, who were safely housed in our new program for over 2,000 nights of safety. Combined with our emergency shelter program, Peace House has provided over 6,000 nights of safety and housing this year for victims of domestic violence. That's a 28% increase from last year, and this year is still not over. We know that we will likely push that to about 8,000 nights of safety. On average, each night at Peace House, there are 40 women, men, and children sleeping on our campus. These families are managing all of the typical routines that you and I manage in our own homes. They're preparing meals for their families. They're tucking their children into bed. They're helping with homework. They're going to work and they're going to school. But they're doing this while they're also navigating the emotional, mental, and physical safety of their families. Peace House is committed to a holistic approach. We offer a continuum of care and support for survivors in our community. Survivors of interpersonal violence and abuse need support services that wrap around them, help them meet a number of different needs, and have the opportunity to heal from trauma and improve their well-being, their safety, and their economic security. We offer comprehensive bilingual support services. This includes counseling and legal advocacy, case management services, and prevention education. Our therapists are trained in evidence-based modalities that help support both adults and children who are affected by domestic violence and sexual assault. Case managers and advocates literally walk alongside a survivor. They provide safety planning, they provide emotional support, and they connect survivors and their families to a number of resources to meet their needs. Protective orders, the criminal justice system, employment, childcare, financial assistance, and housing. These services at times can also help survivors safely stay in their home rather than entering into the shelter or relocating. I wanted to share what a survivor, I wanted to share with you some recent remarks from a survivor that left one of our programs. She shared, "Words will not be able to express how thankful I am. Truly from the bottom of my heart, thank you for everything that you've done and provided for me in the darkest chapter of my life. I have no idea where I would be if it wasn't for the love and support of Peace House. Every day I wake up knowing this was all part of my journey. You've given me strength, support, courage, and love to push me through to the next leg. Also, thank you for all of the resources and facts about domestic violence. For so long, I thought I was alone until you came into my life." It is truly a privilege to witness and to support the incredible strength and resilience of survivors. Survivors are navigating some of the most difficult times in their lives when they come to Peace House. 1 in 3 women in Utah will experience domestic violence in her lifetime, and high rates of domestic violence homicide are not a new trend for our state. Each month, 1 woman is murdered by her intimate partner in Utah. And tragically, in just this week, we saw 2 women murdered in our state by an intimate partner or estranged partner. Men are also victims and impacted by abuse, experiencing abuse at rates of 1 in 7. And in Utah, 1 in 6 women and 1 in 25 men will experience rape or attempted rape in their lifetime. Nearly 1 in 3 women in Utah will experience some form of sexual violence during their lifetime. Interpersonal violence and abuse are not issues that affect others. These are issues that affect us all. We are so grateful to have you here with us today. We're so grateful for your past and present support. You've invested in the mission here at Peace House, and it is truly where we have gotten to today because of your support. The growing number of helpline calls, the hospital callouts, and the requests for counseling, advocacy, and housing requires our organization to have greater capacity. Your ongoing support is needed to ensure that Peace House can fulfill its mission and to keep up with the pace of needs in our community. We're so grateful that we have the opportunity to share this afternoon with you. Thank you so much for your generosity and partnership. Now, it is truly my honor to introduce our featured speaker, Leslie Morgan Steiner. Leslie is a New York Times bestselling author, a columnist for the Washington Post, a speaker on work-family balance, a successful corporate executive, and a domestic violence survivor. Excuse me. Leslie is here today to share her story. I apologize for my voice. And she'll be sharing with you how we can all support survivors of interpersonal violence and abuse. Please welcome Leslie.
Thank you so much, Kendra. And I'm Leslie Morgan Steiner, and it's a great pleasure to be here. I'm here today because I'm committed to helping other people understand what it really feels like to be a domestic violence victim and survivor. But my guess is that you're here today because you care deeply about this community. And Peace House is an integral part of this community's emotional and physical health. And whether you or a family member or a colleague or a friend need Peace House, or you're lucky that you never do, this community's strength depends on Peace House. And I'm going to tell you my story now, and I'll ask you to think about a reality of abuse, which is that no victim, no matter his or her strength or privilege, gets out of an abusive situation alone. We need so much help. And some of the help comes from our friends and family, but most of the help comes from the experts, strangers, who understand what we've been through better than we understand it ourselves. So I grew up far from here in Washington, D.C. My mom was a teacher and my dad was a lawyer. And I was a quiet, shy little girl who loved animals, my family, books, and boys. I just was one of those girls who was boy crazy from a very early age. And it never, and I mean never, occurred to me that any boy or man would ever want to hurt me. It just was outside of my realm of consciousness. And I was a real rule follower. I sat in the front row of every single classroom I've ever been in. And I was really focused on mostly on being good. Like so many girls, I was indoctrinated with this ethos that if I was a good girl, nothing bad would ever happen to me. And boy, was I good. I was the neighborhood babysitter and dog walker, and I helped my mother in every way that I could. There was nobody I loved more in my life than my mom. And I wanted to make my parents proud, and I did. I went to Harvard, and when I graduated, I felt kind of like, okay, I did it, all right? I did it. And I had what I thought was the world's finest job on the planet, which was that I was a writer and editor at 17 magazine in New York. And this is everything I'm going to tell you reads like a story, which is why I wrote a book about it. But every moment of this is true. It was a dark, stormy winter night, and I was alone on the New York City subway. I had just had dinner with my best friend from childhood who had gotten engaged. And I had that funny feeling, which I think a lot of women in this room probably shared when you found out that your best friend from childhood got engaged, which was that I was convinced that it would never happen to me, that no one would ever love me that much. And this really handsome guy sat next to me on the subway. And he was chatting me up, and I knew you weren't supposed to meet men on the subway, but I was still that boy crazy girl. And he felt so safe. And he worked at an investment bank in the city, and I knew a lot of guys from Harvard who worked at the same place. And he just was friendly and sweet. And when he called me a month later, he tracked me down at 17. I agreed to go out on a date with him. And, you know, the terrible thing about abusers is they don't come with a warning label on their foreheads. He was funny and smart and charming. And I went out on another date with him and another date. And before I knew it, I was in love with him. He made me laugh. He made me feel beautiful. He told me that I was the most special girl he had ever dated. And this is what I want you to understand, is how he made me feel. He made me feel like he saw inside my heart and soul. He told me that he knew I was going to be a great writer one day. He told me something that no one had ever told me, which is that he knew I was going to be a great mother one day. And I felt like the luckiest person in the world that I had randomly met this man. I really felt like the universe or God had brought us together. And as we got to know each other, everything happened really fast, which is a hallmark of abuse, but I didn't know that at all. He confessed to me his secret, which was that he had been terribly, violently, physically abused starting from the age of 4. And I don't mean that he was spanked. I mean that his stepfather broke his arm, broke his collarbone, broke his ribs, starved him in front of the other children, humiliated him, and beat his mother in front of him, just like the child that you heard on that video. And I didn't know any of the red flags of abuse. And Connor confessing all this to me, it just made me love him even more and respect him even more. That he had had such a terrible start in life and no one to protect him. And he had to drop out of school in 8th grade, but he had clawed his way back into the U.S. educational system and graduated magna cum laude from another Ivy League school on the same time that I had. He was so impressive and strong and charming, and not only did I feel lucky to be with him, but I was proud to be with him. And when he asked me to marry him, I said yes. And this is where the plot thickens quite a bit. Because soon after he asked me to marry him, he asked for 2 things that I was so in love with him that I couldn't possibly say no. One was that he asked me to keep the engagement a secret. And secrets are really dangerous because they separate you from other people. But I agreed. And then he also asked me to give up my job at 17 and to give up my life in New York and to leave that all behind and to start our life together as a couple in a tiny town in New England where we knew no one. And the way that abuse always happens is that the first stage is a fairy tale that doesn't feel like a fairy tale. It just feels like the best thing that's ever happened to you. The next stage is always isolation because it's much, much easier to abuse somebody when they're isolated. And Connor needed to get me away from those colleagues at 17 who cared about me, my friends and family who cared about me, the neighbors in my apartment who might have heard me being abused. He needed all of that to go away. And the way that he got me to keep that secret and to leave New York is that he told me that it was all because of me and how much I loved him that he was able to leave all that behind. That I made him feel so safe and loved that he could leave his job that he'd worked so hard to get, and that he could leave his community and start over with me. It was because I was showing him what true love was all about. And I'll tell you, that is a very heady thing to say to a 22-year-old girl/woman who's starting out in life, because it made me feel powerful and independent and so strong that I was going to heal this man and show him what true love really was all about. So I gave all that up. My friends and family thought I was making the biggest mistake of my life, and they told me so. And I felt so sorry for them because they obviously had never really been in love. Connor first attacked me 5 days before our wedding. Before this point, he had never even raised his voice to me. And I had planned, I'm good at this planning thing of making stuff look perfect on the outside. And I had planned the perfect wedding in June at Harvard's Memorial Church. And 5 days beforehand, he got up early in the morning and he strangled me. And as he was strangling me, he was hitting my head against the wall and screaming at me. And nothing like this had ever happened in my life. And I was scared. I was terrified. And I knew what I had to do. I knew I had to call off the wedding, that I had to call my parents, that I had to call the police. But denial is a really powerful force. It's almost as powerful as love. And I felt both of those very strongly. And I heard this voice inside me that said, Leslie, you know what? Men get cold feet before they get married. And with his history of abuse, of course, he's so scared of becoming a family with you. And you're such a strong, smart, independent woman. You can take this. And true love demands that we look past the flaws in the people we love. But the biggest lie that my denial told me was that he would never do it again. That he would never risk losing me because he loved me so much. And I was that prettiest girl he'd ever dated and the person who was going to show him true love. And he wouldn't risk losing me. So I didn't tell anybody. And 5 days later, the 10 red bruises from his fingers had just healed on my neck enough so that nobody could see them. And I put on my mother's wedding dress and I married him. And he beat me twice more on the honeymoon. My life really quickly went from being this wonderful fairy tale of being in New York City with this great job and taking on the world and meeting the love of my life on the New York City subway to living in this tiny town where I didn't know anyone, where I couldn't tell anyone. And I was married to somebody who controlled the money in our family, who had the keys to the one car that we had, and who was beating me. And he pushed me down the stairs of our house. He pulled the key out of the car ignition as I was driving down the highway. He poured cold water on me when I was taking a bath. He threw a lot of food. He poured coffee grinds on my head one morning when I was getting ready for an important interview. He acted like he was still that 4-year-old child who was filled with rage. And even though I was the one who was going to save him, he was taking all the rage out on me. And it was the most confusing, terrifying experience that I had ever had in my life. And when he wasn't doing that stuff, he was still making me laugh and making me feel loved and making me feel really special and lucky to be with him. And that's one of the many reasons I didn't just leave, is because I loved him and I loved who he was on his good days. 49% of him was the finest person I've ever met. the smartest, the gentlest, the kindest. But 51% was the most angry and broken man I've ever known. And it took a long time before I was humbled by the abuse and my complete inability to help him. It took a long time before I realized that he was going to kill me if I stayed. He acquired 3 guns, a Glock 9mm, a Colt 45, and a snub-nosed Smith & Wesson 38 that fit in his pocket. And he kept the Glock in the glove compartment of the car, and he kept the Colt 45 under the pillow of our bed. And they were loaded all the time. And he told me that he got these guns to protect me because I was home alone as a freelance writer, and I had grown up in such a privileged way that I didn't know how to protect myself. But the guns were not to protect me. The guns were to terrify me. And every single fight ended with him holding me on the ground and pulling my hair back and putting a gun on one side of my head. And I got very good at putting cover up right here. It's a miracle that I survived. It's a miracle that he didn't kill me. And part of the miracle has to do with him, because after he had set up this life of perfect isolation, far from my friends and family, where he could hurt me and psychologically and physically isolate me and abuse me, he broke all of that by convincing me, it's like you cannot make this up, by convincing me to go to Wharton Business School with him. We got into Wharton, and overnight, I wasn't isolated anymore. I had this huge community, literally thousands of classmates and professors and administrators and the University of Pennsylvania healthcare system and neighbors. And it made it a lot harder for him to do what he was doing. And it made it a lot easier for me to slowly reach out for help. And at the very end, or the beginning, came on another dark winter night. It was the end of our second year at Wharton. And you know that day on campus when a break starts and everybody leaves all of a sudden? You know, in the morning, everybody's going to classes, but by night, everybody's gone. It was that day, and we were still there. And it was as if all of a sudden he got that isolation back, the safety of the isolation, because our neighbors were gone and the university was closed. And he took advantage of that to barricade me in our bedroom and to spend the entire night torturing me. And he was angry about something very minor. It didn't take much to set him off. And he beat me for hours, and he kept strangling me into unconsciousness. So I was unconscious for most of this. He ripped off my clothes. I was on the floor for a lot of it. He had a black belt in karate and a black sash in kung fu, and he beat the heck out of me for hours. And he broke my favorite wedding picture over my head, so I had glass all over me. And I knew that he was going to kill me. I could feel it. It was this very cold, intense terror. And I knew he was going to kill me. And the reason that he was stopped from killing me, there were 2 things happened. One is that I heard this voice inside me saying that I could choose myself over him if I wanted to, that I didn't have to, that he was a wonderful person worthy of love, but that I was too, and that I could choose me if I wanted to. But the other thing that happened is that there was one other person in the building that night. And I still don't know who it was. It was a man, because I heard his voice. And he came we lived in an apartment on the second floor of the apartment, and I heard him coming running down the stairs. And then I heard him pounding on our door. And this is what he said. "Stop it, stop it. Can't you tell that if you keep on beating her, you're going to kill her?" And I don't know who that neighbor was, but I know one thing, that he was very brave and that he saved my life. And in some ways, he saved Connor's life too, because Connor stopped. And Connor started to cry. He knew immediately what he had done. And he was also really sorry for what he had done. And I asked him to leave, and he did. And as soon as he left, I did something that I had never done before, because I knew it would have gotten him in trouble, which is I picked up the phone and I called the police. And the police were there almost immediately. And they were incredible. They told me that if I let him, he would kill me. And there's nothing quite like having a hardened Philadelphia police officer point at your living room rug and say, you know, if you get back together with him, one day we may come here and find you dead right there. And I also could feel that those police officers, even though they didn't know me, that they cared about me in a way that Connor didn't and couldn't. And I could feel in that room that they had a kind of love for me. I could feel it, because what Connor had done to me is he made me so raw and so scared and so open that I could feel this stranger's love. And I did everything that they told me to do. They told me to go to City Hall, to file a restraining order, to serve it the next day. They told me that I had to hire a lawyer to get divorced. They told me I could never be alone with him again. And they said it all in this really matter-of-fact way, because they did this a lot. They knew much more about domestic violence than I ever could hope to know. And I did it all. And I wish I could tell you that it was really easy, but it wasn't. It was the hardest thing that I've ever done. The hardest thing, believe it or not, was that I wanted to still give him another chance. I still felt sorry for him, and I still really loved him, and I still knew there was a lot of good in him. But something in me had really broken that night, and I was able to follow the officer's advice. And I served him with a restraining order the next day. I told everybody in my life what he had been doing. I broke the silence about what he had been doing. I called my friends and family. I needed an army of people to help me to not get back together with him. And my friends and family were really ill-equipped to help me, because they knew nothing about domestic violence. And also, guess what? They cared about him too. They had embraced him as my husband, and they saw the good in him too. And some people took my side, and some people tried to stay neutral, and some people took his side. It's a very confusing thing, domestic violence. So the people who were able to help me were people who, for one reason or another, understood the complexity of abuse, and they understood exactly what I was going through. And these are the kinds of people who helped me. One of my Wharton marketing professors, a woman a little bit older than me, she heard about what was going on when classes started up again, and I started going back to them because I was going to get that MBA. She took me aside and she whispered something to me that I never forgot. She said, "The same thing happened to me. I got out too. You're going to be okay. And one day, this is going to feel like a nightmare that happened to somebody else." And she was giving me this really gritty version of hope that I was going to get through this. I had to call a locksmith, and because I had to get my locks changed because maybe Connor would come back. And he said to me, this disembodied voice over the phone, he said, "Honey, it's Christmas. I could be there in 5 days." And I took a deep breath because I was I knew that part of my salvation lay in telling everybody the truth. And I said, I just left a man who was physically abusing me. And he said, I'll be there in 20 minutes. I had to go to family court many times. And even though I come from a family of Harvard educated and Harvard Law School educated lawyers, I didn't have anybody who would go to court with me. So I went to family court alone. And it's a very dangerous place to go by yourself if you're an abuse victim. And I knew it. I knew the judge was going to believe Connor and not me. I knew that. I had fallen for Connor. I knew that a judge, especially a male judge, would too. So I was very fortunate when I got there, and a woman younger than me, who I didn't know her name then, I don't know her name now, had a file on me. And she said, "Are you Leslie? I'm here to help you." And she talked to the judge. She talked to Connor too. And I will never forget Connor's face. So I was sitting on one side of the waiting room and he was on the other. And so he was facing me and I was terrified. This young woman with her back to me walks up to Connor and he puts on his charming, handsome smile. And she walks up to him and she goes like this. I can see it from the back, and the smile disappears from his face. And I don't know what she said to him, and I don't know what she said to the judge, but she took care of me. I had a therapist, I had a divorce lawyer, I had like this army of people who helped me. And a lot of them were able to help me because of organizations like Peace House that consider it their mission to educate everybody in the community who touches an abuse victim and his or her children as they're in this really vulnerable and frightening time of leaving and rebuilding their life. Because those are the people who helped me. It was almost like it was a relay race, and the police passed me off to the locksmith, who passed me off to the advocate, who passed me off to the divorce lawyer. You know, everybody was helping me, and no one was rescuing me because that's not what it's about. I needed to find my own strength, but I needed so much help to get out. And one of the realities of abuse is that I was so traumatized and so scared and so sad that I didn't really notice that those people were helping me. I was so desperate for their help that I was utterly unable to thank any of them. I did not thank the police that night. I didn't thank the advocate in court. Maybe I thanked the locksmith, but I don't remember that. And I sure as heck didn't thank my divorce lawyer, because my divorce lawyer told me, he said to me that we were going to give Connor a lump sum of money, as much money as I could accumulate, because we were going to convince Connor that he had beaten me for good. And we were going to use money to do that. And the strategy was that if we convinced Connor that he had destroyed me, that he would leave me alone and never bother me again. Connor also wanted all of his guns back. I had given them to the Philadelphia police, and my lawyer went and got the guns and gave them back to Connor. And I was incapable of doing any of that. And I really disagreed with all of it at the time. But that lawyer saw that my safety was the most important thing. And because I'm here today because of all of those people, and just because I got lucky. And there are a lot of people who don't get lucky. There are a lot of people whose exes kill them. The most dangerous thing that you can do in an abusive relationship is to leave it, is to end it. 70% of domestic violence homicides happen after we've left, usually within the first week of us leaving. So I was very, very, very lucky. And because I got out, and because I rebuilt my life, and because I married somebody who would never hurt anyone, and because I had 3 children with that person, because I got a second chance, that's why I'm here today. But I was never able to thank any of those people. So on behalf of all those people who helped me, who never got thanked, who never saw what I became afterwards. I'd like to thank every single person who works at Peace House, who donates to Peace House, every single person in this room, because I'm here today because of you, because of people like you. And you never know who you're helping. You could be helping your neighbor. You could be helping one of the people at one of these tables. You just don't know who you're helping. So I'm immensely grateful to all of you for taking the time to listen to me and giving from your bounty to help Peace House, to help people like me. Because most of us victims, we do get out. That's where the hope lies. We get out and we rebuild our lives. None of us ever wants to repeat this mistake, trust me. But we need some help and guidance to rebuild ourselves and to move on. And for some of us, it takes a lot of help and a lot of time and a lot of legal support and a lot of people who believe in us when we don't believe in ourselves. And you are those people. You are this community. So thank you for listening to me. It's been an honor to be here. And thank you for helping Peace House.
It's me again. Thank you, Leslie. Emotional. Love the word gritty. Obviously meaningful and ultimately important. Words and stories, as powerful as they may be, are not quite as powerful as contributing to the mission of Peace House, which brings us to the Give for Good paddle race. As mentioned, today's event is the major fundraiser for Peace House, and here's how it works. Once I explain the contribution level, you simply raise your paddle if you want to donate. Please continue holding it up until you hear me call out your number. That way we'll be able to record it. Once you've heard that, you can lower the paddle. Let's start with contributions at $10,000. I'm sure we're going to see paddles raised everywhere. $10,000 ensures that an entire family fleeing from abuse has safe and secure housing. We got paddle number 27, paddle number 30, paddle number 3, paddle number 9. Any others? That's terrific, 4 of them. Thank you all very much. The next level, we're going to move right through these. I assume we got those recorded, right? The next level is 5,000. This provides around-the-clock saving shelter services for survivors, children, and their pets. Whoops, we missed one. Or is this 500? 500? 5,000? I'm sorry, 5,000. I already went down. Kind of an auctioneer, am I? We have numbers 124, number 24, number 6, number 174, number 156, number 176, 200. Are you going to do this twice? Did we get all of those? All right, that was $5,000. Thank you very much. Very generous. The next level is $2,500. That funds a well-stocked pantry with nutritious meals for families living on campus. And you've seen how important that is. We have number 14, number 165, number 128, number 63. What happened to this side of the room? Okay, that was the $2,500 level. Thank you very much indeed. The next level is $1,000, and that helps survivors access legal protection from their abusers. And you know attorneys are not cheap. Oh, are there some attorneys here? Sorry. Oh boy, we got a bunch here. Number 21, number 20, number 195, number 136, number 61, number 194, number 125, number 50, number 131, number 81, number 173. Oh, we got some lively. Number 70, guess who? Number 160, number 143, number 8. Yes, ma'am. Wonderful. Thank you very much indeed. I feel like Dan DeCaro doing a housing auction. Next level, $500. It provides prevention and awareness presentations to educate our community about breaking the cycle of violence and abuse. This is an important one. If people don't know we're out there, how can they help? So $500 level, this is for prevention and awareness presentations. Number 73, number 180, number 62, 127, 34, 157, 53, 65, 49, 146, 74, 152, 48, 11, 77, 7, 182, 137, 135, this is amazing, 79, 154, 80, 35, and number 5. Thank you all very much. That was terrific. Absolutely terrific. Wow. Thank you very much to Wendy. $5,000, Wendy Sandler. We're now down to the 250 level. This provides counseling and mentorship, which empowers survivors and supports their healing. Counseling and mentorship. And you heard how important that is earlier in our program. Number 56, number 147, number 184, number 64, number 41, number 18, number 144, 37, 155, 12, 22, 139, 181, 168, 69, 126, 193, 82, 199, 36, 68, 47, 171. If we leave anybody out, that was great. Thank you all very much. Our last level is $100. This is an important one too, because it funds and ensures the continuation of the 24/7 helpline so that it's always available to anyone who may be affected by domestic violence or sexual assault. And you know how important that is when you need to reach somebody quickly. 44, 25, 57, 58, 75, 159, 158, 196, 75, 132, 76, 151, 120, 40, 145, 29, let's see, 172, 166. Wow, there's a whole bunch over here. Good for this side of the room. We're playing to this side now. 164, 130, 170, 138, 4, 167, 33, 134, 13, 17, 31, going once, going twice. Thank you all very much. That's amazing. That's really, really amazing. Very generous. Now to wrap up today's program, please welcome Board Chair Richard Uranker. Richard?
So I have the privilege of being Peace House Board Chair, and it is absolutely a privilege. And I got the best job because I get to thank everybody who made this happen today. So, and to recognize some of the people. So I'm going to ask some people to stand, so please don't be shy. And let's start at the top. Let's start with the event committee. And everybody from the event committee, come on, Harriet, stand up. We want to, Kate, where are you? Kate, come on, there's others. Yeah. I think Kate underestimated a year. I think it was more like a year and a half, wasn't it, Kate? Promontory, the Promontory Foundation, Laura Arnold, one of our board members, and Nicole. Thank you. Bill, 6-time Emmy Award winner. Thank you for joining us and everything you do for Peace House. Now I'd like all the board members to stand because we're really lucky to have a large group of board members who really care about our mission and give not only their time, but give of their heart. Thank you. And then staff, we have some staff members here. We're staff members, come on, stand up. Where are you? Come on, Kendra. Hey, come here. Staff members, you just join me up here on stage. Come on, Catherine. You guys are the stars. Leslie told everybody today, the real stars are you guys. So come on up here. Oh, and there's Sally. Like Leslie said, these are the people that make it happen. So stay here with me. Leslie, you're speaking. We're so glad you could come today, and I just want to say that the longer I work with Peace House, the more I admire the courage of our survivors. So thank you for sharing your story. And then last but not least, of course, is the greater Park City community and the greater Utah community. That's why we're here, because of our community, and it's taken a community effort. And there's many people in this room who have been here year in and year out. You know who you are. You volunteered your time. You've given your money. It's made an extreme difference for the survivors. So you again are in our prayers and appreciated more than you can really realize. So thank you for that. And then thank you just to everybody for coming, and I hope everybody has a good day and keep supporting Peace House.